Hello and welcome to Sounds Heal Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Brown, and thank you so much for joining me as we continue to explore the fields of sound therapy, sound healing, and generally the use of sound for health and wellness. Today, our guest has a relation to our previous guest from last month, Nestor Kornblum, and thank you so much for listening to that episode, for your comments and support of that episode. And I'm really looking forward to actually taking an overtone singing course with Nestor coming up later this month into June. So that should be really fun. So our episode today is with Michele Averard, who is married to Nestor. She's also the co-director and co-founder with him of the Association of Sound Therapy and Harmonic Studies. And she's an internationally recognized sound therapist, singer-songwriter, and an author as well. And so we explore her main focus really of freeing your voice in a way to heal yourself and to fully express your authentic self. So it's wonderful to talk with Michele. I think you'll really enjoy her energy as well and her story. She's very open, very honest, and it's a really interesting podcast. Also, just to mention, this was recorded through Zoom. So there's just a little bit, a couple times, a little bit of a connection issue between the United States and Spain. So you'll just hear a couple glitches here and there, but it shouldn't take away from the podcast. And if you would like to watch the video and actually see our conversation, you can find that at youtube.com/SoundsHealStudio. This podcast is sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. The Om Shop is located in Sarasota, Florida. And you can also find them at theomshop.com to check out all their vibrational tools, sound healing instruments, and all of their offerings, including some classes that I will be teaching there later this year. So thank you so much to the Om Shop for their sponsorship, and please enjoy this episode with Michele Averard. Okay, Michele, thank you so much for joining me, and I really appreciate you being a part of this podcast and joining us from, I believe, the Dome Center in Spain. Is that right?
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, from Spain, and I would love to say sunny Spain, but we haven't seen the sun for a few weeks. It's been quite crazy here. So it's raining again today.
Oh, it'll change. It'll change. Well, why don't we start with your background a bit, you know, where you're from, what your upbringing was like. I know that you were very much encouraged to explore your talents and gifts from a young age. So just tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. It's a long time ago, you know. Let's see. Definitely encouraged, because both my parents were showbiz people. In those days, you know, they called themselves showbiz people, and they did a variety of different things like dancing and singing and acting. You know, it was, in those days you had to do a little bit of everything. It was like the Shirley MacLaine kind of, you know, whole all-rounder. And I was their only child. So it was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure put on me to forget about education in the more normal sense, but just to embrace the artistic world, which is obviously something that all children love to do. But when they're pushed to do it, then it's, you know, it's a whole different scene. It's a whole different experience. But I do thank them. I mean, there were times, but I do thank them for having supported me, for sure, with that. And especially for having supported me to find a way to express myself and to really, I think, start a sound therapy on myself at a very young age, because they certainly gave me enough to need to heal So that's what I would do. I would go out there at a very young age, and I would, commune with nature, and I would just sing. That's what I did, and that was my thing. Yeah, so I actually think that most children find a way of surviving their parents. They find a way, and it's usually through some creative art, either by singing or dancing or running or something that helps them to release what they need to release. And that was mine. Mine was to commune with my environment, to sound out, actually. Of course, I didn't know what I was doing in those days, but I was toning. That's what I was doing. And it worked.
Yeah, and I think it's quite natural. I mean, we think about children kind of humming or singing as a coping mechanism, or just creating their own songs, or they're just very vocal at releasing sounds in general. And in a way, it's almost like when we're younger, we're always told to be quiet. Whether it's
Absolutely.
in the classroom or the home, perhaps that's kind of where some of that constriction begins for some people. So yeah, finding a way to bring that back, I know, is a big part of your work. But you know what, before we get to that, I know that you really did train as a musician, and you were a singer-songwriter. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that developed too?
Well, the idea of training, let's see, I went to all the right schools. That's that was it. But I was never a very good musician, especially the piano teacher. I actually hated my piano teacher. I never did anything right. And I hated the scales, and I hated anything like that. So I don't think, I don't think any of my music teachers would actually say that I was trained in anything. What I loved to do was just to bash about on the old piano at home, and also on one of my dad's guitars. But no, I don't think I was officially trained in anything like that. But yes, I stumbled back into the world of art, of being a performer, after many years of having denied it, and really had to run away from it, because I was pushed so much as a child, to be on the stage, to give them a song, to, well, those kind of, you can imagine that kind of childhood where everything is glamour and everything is an opportunity for a Hollywood scene or something like that, And so I ran away from that. I really just wanted to be a hippie. A privileged hippie, of course. And so I did a lot of traveling around the world. And it wasn't until I had my son, actually, Shai, who was born in Israel. I ended up in a kibbutz in Israel, and I had my son in Israel. And it was then that I wanted to sing to him, to start with the lullabies. And so he kind of like was the reason, the focal point that I came back to sound, to song. And so then, of course, I bought myself a very old guitar. Well, not an old guitar, actually, but a very cheap guitar. And on that, I started writing. And I found that I think I must have saved a lot of money in therapy bills by, those late night tunes that, when you're there at 5 o'clock in the morning, still hanging on the A minor and the E minor, because it's always around those minors. And then in the morning, when you actually listen to your recorded stuff, and you think, well, actually sounded really good last night. That's not so great this morning. But anyway, things like that. But my words and my songs, and I still have a basket full of those songs that one day I'm always saying, my daughter actually encouraged, Mama, you have to record all your songs. So that led me to looking for a band, and then I started to perform my songs. But again, it was a disastrous avenue, because it was all about ego. It was, again, rekindling kindling that whole idea that, yes, I wanted to be famous. And so it was all the solar plexus energy stuff, you know, and it's soul destroying. It really is soul destroying. Well, it isn't soul destroying if you make it, but if you don't make it, then it is soul destroying. And but it was wonderful, because I'm so happy that I did do that, because it was on that one occasion when basically my band had left me. My lead guitarist, who was my lover at the time, had left me, and a disaster everywhere in my life, that I went outside, and I couldn't take my guitar with me, and I couldn't sing any of my songs because it reminded me of what I was, you know, upset about. And I went outside and I just howled. Basically, I howled to the moon. And I suddenly remembered in that moment, you know, how healing just the howling or the humming, like you mentioned before, or just the toning, you know, just the expression of free sound can actually be. It was like one of those aha moments. And I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. If this is good for me, then surely there must be other people out there doing it. And I would love to share this with other people. And so, sorry if I ran a little bit far ahead, Natalie, but it really all kind of like follows into one. The reason why I'm doing what I'm doing today, you know, was because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand that. And I had a realization myself as a performer, you know, as a musician,
Right.
the difference between being an entertainer, you know, and the way that you express music versus, uh, you know, intentionally, like, why am I doing this? What is the energy behind it? You know, and it's a totally different type of expression, isn't it? Um, yeah, it
Certainly is.
really is. It really is. And was that about the same time you started? I know you did other energy medicine work as well. You studied with people.
Yes,
Is that kind of when everything?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It just kind of like, once it starts, as you know this, you know, once you decide, this is what I want to do when I grow up, you know, this is what I want to be. And then everything just comes and you think, oh, I could do a bit, mold this all together and see what happens. And so I started to explore. Of course, it woke me up. It was a big wake-up call, and I started to explore different avenues of alternative therapies and different things. And I did educate myself. I'm a craniosacral therapist, and then I, you know, became I worked with this medium for 4 years, and so all those things were vital in putting together what I like to share now, and what we both together with my husband Nestor Kornblum we share in our trainings and our work. But I have to say that sound was what brought the magic into all of these modalities, because I would get bored very quickly. I would take on a training, I would do a training, I would learn all these wonderful things, and then I would think, oh, how can I do this with sound? You know, it was always something like, oh, maybe I can get the Tibetan Bowls, or maybe, you know, the monochord or something would lift this up, you know. And so yeah, so it was very much an integral part of everything that I am and that I was.
Yeah. And why do you think that the voice itself is so important? Because we can apply a lot of these things, like you said, to the monochord, or maybe as a singer songwriter, the guitar. But why do you think tapping into the voice, and especially in your moment of transformation with the band left and all that, it was your voice that really needed to come through? What do you think the
Well,
power of
because
the
I
voice?
think, and I'm sure you agree with this, but I I believe that the voice is an expression of your energy. It is an expression of your vibration, of course, and it's something that you can't run away from. And before, when I was with the band and I had, and I was performing in that way, I was kind of like taking on a persona. I wanted to be this kind of person. And so I sang in that way, even though they were my songs, which at least I was that authentic that they were my songs. But still, I was stylizing my voice to adapt to these songs so that I could be that person that I wanted to be, or I thought that my public would like me to be. And then when I just stood out there, I couldn't get away from myself, I just couldn't get away from the shadows of myself and also the beauty of myself too. It wasn't that it was all bad. There was this tremendous feeling of oneness with everything, even though it was all schnot and trauma at the time. I felt like I'd come home. I felt like I had returned to source, that I was really communing with my vibration. This was me in this moment. This may not be me later on, but this is definitely me in the now. And that whole sensation is what I believe the voice work, more than any of the other healing modalities of sound therapy, because as you know, sound therapy, my goodness, it's, people say, what is sound therapy? And you go, excuse me, do you have, a couple of weeks and I'll explain to you a few things. It's such a huge therapy, isn't it? You can go in so many different ways, the whole thing about sound. We're talking about vibration here. And so, yeah, so the voice is really key to helping somebody confront themselves or fall in love with themselves, recognize themselves, be responsible for themselves, be in the now with themselves, and take the courage to really care about where they're going from now on. So it's all to do with that. It's really coming back to that responsibility for your vibration, and you can't hide from it. You can't hide from it. Soon it catches up. Once you start with the sound work, with the voice work, then there's no hiding from yourself. There's none. I'm sure you agree with that.
I do, and it had me thinking that you first have to get the person to have the courage to engage. Once they come and they start opening up with the voice, they will. But I would have to say that many people might start to learn about the tuning forks or the bowls, but they'll avoid the voice. So how do you get people in to actually
Yes.
work with their voice? Because so many people really are resistant to it.
Yeah, well, this is what happens very often. As you know, we do a training, because I know you've interviewed Nestor and you've spoken about this, but our training basically is they can't escape, they come to us and they get the whole baggage. So the voice is the very, very first module. It's got to be the first module, because so you get the people that come in the first evening, they'll say, well, I'm here because I want to learn about tuning forks, or I'm here because I want to learn about Tibetan bowls, or I'm here because of blah blah blah, and no one's going to say anything about their voice. And very often those people, I'm sure you've had this experience too, those people are the people that at the end they go, my God, I thought I'd come for that, and I actually am so relieved and so happy and so amazed, because actually the voice is so much more important. The voice is really going to help me now, all this voice work. So yes, and of course there are shy people, but hey, I'm being quite powerful speaking in this interview with you, but I'm actually not always this dynamic. I can also be very soft and gentle and put on my soft voice and care about people. I think not being afraid to come up to people and to say in a obviously in a very protected way, in a very energy conscious way, that I don't go into people's, I don't move, I don't cross people's boundaries, but in a very heartfelt way, and say, hello, I'm here. Let's work together. Let's do something. I don't expect you to sing like Mariah Carey or whatever, or to on the first attempt. There is no pressure. There's no judgment. Just any sound will do. I'm sure you can appreciate that. That's really very important, because people are very fragile, just like you said, and they will close up. And if they close up, then, there's no, it's not easy to get through. But I get through to people.
Yeah, just really creating a safe atmosphere, and encouraging them that it doesn't necessarily have to be singing, I mean, just expressing your voice. And gosh, if every time we stubbed our toe, we didn't make a noise, I mean, there's a reason that we gasp, or we sigh, or just release sounds. It's movement of energy. And so just encouraging that natural expression is probably the most powerful tool that we have. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget, we know a lot of the people that come to our course, and we have international clients, of course, but we do live in Spain, and the Spanish people have no problem expressing themselves at all. In fact, I've worked also in the northern countries, like Sweden and Finland, and that's now there, it's quite challenging. I remember one time I'd spent the whole day, it was in Finland, and it was a voice workshop, and it was so hard to get any sound out of the people in my workshop. And I thought, and I even started to think, my ego was thinking, they hate me. They really don't like me. No one's laughing at my jokes, and they're not even smiling at me. And then that evening, a man came up to me, and he says, I just want to thank you so much, because this has been the most enjoyable day of my whole life. And I had to burst out laughing, because, there was just no expression at all from these people. And they were so sincere, and they had loved the work. And the next day they came back, and they actually went for it. So it was a question of breaking the ice, I guess, that first day, but of course, with the Spanish culture and the Spanish nationality, that's never a problem. They basically come completely thawed out from the first hour. In fact, I don't like to use the word shut up, because I believe that we are attacked by the shut ups, which I call these kind of, I have a vivid imagination. They're like insects that actually make the scarf around our neck, and giving pressure to our throat chakra, of course, so that we cannot express ourselves, even when we've woken up everything else and all the other chakras, But sometimes I have to say, hey, let's just tone it down a bit. Because, the other thing also, Natalie, is that sometimes the extreme happens, and people who are, that find it easy to express themselves, and that are pretty spontaneously loud and whatever, they could also be hiding from themselves, So yeah, and so it's an interesting. It's such an interesting work, and always I learn so much from everybody about myself.
Absolutely. I think that is a really great point, that it's not always in constriction when people don't express themselves. There is the opposite, where someone's very vocal, perhaps as a defense mechanism, in a different way. So yeah, that's a really good point. Now, I know you have people that come there to study with you, and that you're starting to get things online, but you also have your book as a resource. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's offered? I think there's something like 13 techniques in your book.
Yes,
If you just want to
yes,
mention a little bit about that. And I think that's about came out about a decade ago
absolutely.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that, Natalie. Yes, my book, Free Your Voice, Heal Your Life. It has quite auspicious title there. But yes, it's definitely 13 steps, I guess 13 I've always liked. I'm a bit of a witch, so I rather like the number 13. And I thought, my goodness, that there are so many more steps actually to freeing your voice, or maybe there is just one. Depends. But having said that, yes, there are 13 chapters, 13 different approaches. And it's a journey through working with the elements that are contained within the timbre or the colors of our voice, to working with the registers. I love the register work because I believe that in our register, there lies our whole history of our life, of our experience in this world, is right there contained within those registers. And when you get people to work with the register, then they are really having that opportunity to see themselves and to then embrace what there is, and then also to understand what is lacking in their registers as well. And I think that whole idea of the register is such a sensual experience when you really are with your registers, with your sounding from your lowest to your highest. It is such a beautiful experience of yourself. It's like looking at a blueprint of yourself, So that's part of the work. The other part in the book is working with the name. I personally had to work with my name. In fact, I can say quite honestly that everything I've written in that book has been a personal experience of mine, because I've had to do that work to heal, to gain confidence, to release, to forgive, to do the whole ho'oponopono on myself. And I found that the sound work is just, it's awesome, isn't it? It's the thing. It's the greatest modality there is to really getting to the crunch of the matter, to really getting there, and priority. It's a real priority treatment. And so I work with the name, and the name, I'm Michele, and that's a French name. My mama was actually French and Norwegian. She was a bit of a mixture there. And she called me after her. She was also Michele. Now, when she presented me as a child, she would present me as, she would say she was Michele number 1 and I was Michele number 2. Now, I don't know if you know anything about English education, but they don't like to talk about, pee and caca and stuff like that. Well, they didn't, at least not in the 60s. We're talking way back. And so number 1 was basically the pee, and number 2 was the caca. Now, when you're a child, you just see things so black and white. And so when she presented me as number 2, it was horrible. I would cringe inside. I would feel so bad because I really felt that I was maybe the caca, of this, whatever. It was a crazy notion, but it stuck to me as a child that was my name. And then when I finally asked my mama, why did you call me Michele? Like after you. Well, she didn't help any matters. She said, I called you Michele to really anger your father. so that your father would have to say Michele twice. And of course, that was like, you can imagine, I mean, not only did I have to struggle with my name, but now my name was something that was there as a weapon against my father, against all male, let's say. So to be able, and I remember as a child in school or in any place where they would call me up and they would say my name out loud, I would just want the earth to open up, and I would just go in, and would just suck me up, because it was really very awkward. And of course, I lived in England, and my name was becoming very famous by the Beatles in the 60s. And so everybody would sing Michele, ma belle, to me. Cringe. And then also, because it was a French name, they would call me saucy, sexy, whatever. I mean, in those days, England was a very different country than it is today. And so yes, Natalie, yes. Actually, Natalie is also a French name as well. Natalie, I really had to work on my name. And I found out that I'm not the only one. I found out that 99.5% of the people, have issues or have something surrounding their name and can get so much from it while working with your name. I say your name is your mantra. You don't have to go to India. You don't have to join, some cult or have some spiritual path and receive a special name. Just start with the gift that was given to you as a child, which is your name. Because in your name, there is the key. There is another blueprint there, just like the register of your whole life, of your whole history. There it is. So I say to people very often, if they don't have time to do a lot of work on their name, at least every morning when they're brushing their teeth, take the toothbrush out because it won't sound the same, but just look at yourself in the mirror and just recite your name and see how you feel. Does it feel like it's a tight jacket, that you can't wait to take off? Or does it feel like pajamas that you feel, or a jumpsuit that you feel really comfortable in? I mean, are you comfortable with your name? And so there you have it. You have your mantra already. It's there. So do you work with your name, Natalie? Do you work in that way as well with people?
I have before. I mean, I certainly work with affirmations and mantras, but I wouldn't say that I necessarily have done what you've just suggested. And I just had an image in my mind doing, and I should do that. Yeah.
It's very confronting, I tell you. Yeah. It is so confronting, and people find out all kinds of things about themselves. And in fact, I would love to write, bucket list time, I would love to write another book on just the stories around people's names, because they are amazing. It's amazing. And when you're healing that, of course, when you're doing that work and you're healing that resonance of your name, then you are also, I mean, especially if you're going to also work on your surname, your family name, then you are healing, you're healing the ancient lines there. You're doing a big work, an ancestral ho'oponopono on the whole family as well.
Yeah, I mean, what you're really talking about from your own personal experience, but overall, shifting patterns, and changing old beliefs that really don't do us any good. And so that reminds me that you also do work with children, and a lot of us come to this type of work later on. It's like, I better start changing things aren't working. But gosh, working with children, that must be just so magical, because they are so receptive. And it's almost this idea that, you can save them before all this stuff happens, So I'm really curious about your work with children, what that looks like. I think that's so wonderful that you've done that.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, actually, they're very scary. It is a lot easier to work with adults than it is with children. Children see right through you, and you have to be you in every moment, and you have to be so grounded. and attentive, because, you know, I have a very I have a child spirit. Obviously, we all have. Mine is very developed still, and I tend to go off with the kids, you know, and have lots of fun and everything, and forget about, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something, you know. So I'm not a very good professional child teacher in that way, but definitely I enjoy the energy of the children, and it's just, you know, it's just so easy to see that the way they express themselves and have, well, don't have all the boundaries, of course, and all the programming that we have on everything, and that self-confidence that they have. I mean, of course, there are children that don't have that, but that's usually because of something that's going on at home. It's not anything, you know, it's not a normal personality of a child. I think a child would like to, and needs to, and does express themselves all the time. And if children have got shut-ups already at a young age, then it is very sad. Usually it has to do with brothers and sisters that are bullying them, or a very dominant parent that doesn't allow expression, you know. But these days children are pretty scary, you know. I mean, they really are. They're pretty scary. I mean, they've got all this internet going on, and they've got technology, and they just know everything, you know, and oh my goodness me.
And it's also, you know, I was thinking about this recently. I was a public school teacher for 14 years. And when I first started teaching, you know, all the kids didn't have these devices with them all the time. But then I saw the progression, and I actually saw their communication and interaction change. Like they weren't interacting the same. They would just send somebody else a text message, which isn't this, I don't know. It's just really a big shift that happened to these kids. And of course, talking about vocal work, this is all about communication, isn't it?
Communication,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, that's the interesting thing. I mean, when I talk about the shut-ups, yes, we get them the moment we speak out into this world, and especially when we say no. You know, no, the big no word is the one that's, you're going to get your very first shut up, because in the beginning, you know, your parents or your guardians, your family, they were excited about every sound you made, you know, because who can shy away from a baby's cooing, and, you know, it's so sweet. But the moment we start to speak, we, you know, form a language that is understood. We've been speaking to them before, but now, you know, it's the official language. Then when we learn the no word, then that's when we get our first shut up. And for sure, you know, immediately at school, of course, education, schooling, you're going to get a lot of shut ups from your peers. But then what happens is that when you're a teenager, this is something that I know happened to myself, and I believe this resonates with other people. But when you become a teenager, you know, because we don't have the shamans or the tribes anymore, you know, that structure that would really help us to feel good about ourselves, to support those very tough years as a teenagers. Then what we do is we tend to go towards, you know, the crowd, and very often those the people that we gravitate towards are not really expressing what you feel in your own heart, but, you know, in some moment you're going to just go along with it and say these things that are not really things that really are you, or really, as I said, resonate with you, but you're going to say these things, and actually you're going to shut yourself up just because you want to belong, because you're searching for that community, you're searching for the tribe, you're searching for that experience at that age, at a very vulnerable age. And so there you, instead of just receiving the shut ups, you actually start to shut yourself up, and that's something that we know, well, we learn very quickly. And of course, society is there and helps you. And these days, with what you said about communication with the mobile phones and everything, I can't imagine how difficult it must be to be a teenager at the moment. I mean, wonderful that, yeah, you can speak to China and you can speak to New Zealand and you can speak to Alaska. But hey, everybody knows what you're doing, and you have to be doing something, all the time, or saying something smart all the time. I mean, the pressure must be incredible, incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And that brings us to another big part of your work is really women's rights, the sacred feminine. I know that's a big focus of your work as well. Could you talk a little bit about what that looks like, and perhaps how these things have influenced your music as a singer-songwriter? I'd love to hear more about how over time all these things that have shifted your music as well.
Well, there it is. I mean, thank you, Natalie. Yes, there again. I mean, it's always comes back to, to the self, really. Finding out who I was as a woman, having gone through various relationships, 2 marriages. Nestor is my second husband, and having felt a failure as a woman on occasions, or having felt that I needed to be the best mom. I have 3 children, and I started, and my first son, I was 23. When I had him. And so that was really young. I was a baby myself, although I thought I knew everything at that age, of course, as one does. So really I had to, it's been a natural path of embracing myself as a woman. And so understanding myself as a woman, embracing all the different aspects, facets of being a woman, what it means to be a woman in this moment, in these interesting times that we live in, and then how to sound that vibration, how to give expression to that vibration. And once I started with the sound work, it was just something that led me to the exploration of the female, of the she. And of course, it took me back to my own mama, and and her, her Hollywood showbiz idea of what a woman should be. And then my grandmother was a real character as well. And so, it was just finding out the expression of that, and how you can express it, and how that energy can mean something to other women. Because I do believe that when you work on yourself, and when you are truly you and being you in all moments in front of other people, then that is the greatest healing, isn't it? Or that is the greatest mirror, let's say, because when you're doing it for yourself, then you can help other people to raise their frequency, as we say, in the sound world. And so working on myself, I realized, hey, there are other women out there that would probably benefit from this work too. So it was quite naturally, I gravitated towards working with women. And in the beginning, I called it the sound of woman, and of course there was a lot of funny things around there. Oh yeah, women never stop talking. Well, yeah, of course, what's it going to be all about? Chatter. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's about true woman, with the wild woman, the crazy woman, the beautiful woman, the compassionate woman, the graceful woman. Let's find sounds for all these different archetypes. And and it took me to some very interesting places around the world, working with women, different cultures, again, seeing the differences in society, and then starting a festival, which I started a few years ago, the Moon Festival, and now it's kind of morphed into Festival de Gaia, Gaia Festival. And then I have my something beautiful happened from that, because then I created a women's musical ensemble. Let's say we're not even that, because none of us really play a lot of musical instruments, or we're not a choir either, because we don't have complicated harmonies going on with our music. But what we do have is we've been together for 11 years and we meet every week. Now that is one heck of a commitment. That is a relationship, and I have grown with these lovely ladies and they have grown with me, and we have been there for each other. It's like a woman's circle, but we sing, and the singing is what has kept our friendship alive and kept us together. And so we're super excited, actually, because we have a new song coming out soon called that. I didn't write it. Another lady wrote it, Laura Patejo, a Spanish woman in our group, and it's called Grito, which is literally translates as cry, a cry out or a scream. And it's very well, let's say it's very realistic for the times that we're living in, with the mask and everything that we have to, in Spain, walk around with everywhere. I know in the States, because my son lives in New York, and I was just speaking to him yesterday, and he said that you don't have to wear it. It's not obligatory. Well, it is in Spain. And so, it's very much this shut up that we have here, visual shut up. And so grito is this cry out. But anyway, I went off a bit. Coming back to my lovely ladies. And so we're called Las Voces de Gaia, the voices of Gaia. And that has been something very beautiful that I've worked with. So that has been my feminine path. And I'm just one of the voices in that ensemble. And we have truly fantastic moments. Happy singing together.
And growing together. What a beautiful experience, just seeing how everybody grows over all these years together and individually. Yeah. Wow.
We've even had babies. I mean, we've had babies now. I not myself, because I already had my babies when we started, because my little girl is, well, our youngest, Nestor and mine, is 25. So we're just talking 11 years with the girls, but the girls, they are all younger than me, and they have had babies, and we've had, we've been there at the births, and we have sung in the births, and we've had babies from like 1 week come with us to our rehearsals and to our circle. And we've even had, them on the titty breastfeeding in performances as well, when they've just like come on stage and just looking for their mamas, So it's beautiful. It's very beautiful. And that's another part of the book as well. I encourage people in the book also, that's another step, and that is to actually look for those song circles, because so many people say, oh, it's so beautiful what you have. I wish I could. I wish. I said, well, so you have to just do it. You just have to say, hey, who wants to sing with me? And that's how you start a song circle. I'm sure you know this, Natalie. That's how you started. You started with yourself, asking, reaching out and asking, hey, would you like to sing? Can we get together? Can we sing? What should we sing? Well, let's see. Let's not make it too complicated. We can start off with, beautiful chants, African chants, or chants from around the world, or a mantra or mantras. Make it simple, and then grow from that. And it is a beautiful woman's experience, and that is to sing together. It is so enriching.
Yeah, I think that's true of any transformation. You start with yourself, and then you start to find other people to transform with and support each other. Yeah, just like what
Absolutely.
you have built together there at the Dome Center. I guess let's get to what's happening now. What you just talked about, the new song that's coming out, but what other like new projects and exciting things are coming up for you right now?
Well, actually, yes, there are lots of exciting things, and I am trying not to think of making, trying not to think of new things. And that is something that my family, they just don't totally despair. I don't know if you resonate with this, but today's Monday, every Monday morning, I wake up with a new idea and I go to them and I say, hey, we could do, and they go, no. So they're kind of like, my team, I call them my team. They're kind of like running to catch up with ideas. And I've promised them at the beginning of this year, I promised them not to have any more ideas. So this is what we're doing at the moment. Not having ideas. But yes, we have our trainings, our beautiful 2-week trainings. We found 2 week is quite a magical time because it's enough time not to get really fed up with each other. But it's enough, but it's a good time to be able to be naked together, with your, just to for the walls to come down and be able to really shift your energy. And in those 2 weeks, we cover every aspect of sound that we possibly can in 2 weeks without it being an overload, but it's a very transformative and inspiring journey. That's with Nestor and myself, and that's at the Dome. And then we have other trainings where we get other facilitators on board, where we're doing the healing voice, and that's different modalities of looking at the voice. Again, we have Nada Brahma yoga. We do Mama Canta with a lovely lady from Barcelona, and this is all like postnatal work. It's about birthing. It's like working with helping through the pregnancy, and then after the pregnancy, and then with little children. And then we have another guy that comes in and does a lot of body work and breath work with the voice. And then of course there's Nestor with the overtones, the harmonics. And so, yeah, and then there's our daughter Charlie Kornblum, who's really, look out for her, because she started this with me in my stomach. This is how I started this sound journey. She was right there. I was pregnant with her, and now she's doing the ancestral voice, and she's doing really well with that. She's got amazing vocal range, and she helps people to access and find their tribal sounds. And those tribal sounds, they're not something either that are like stylized on tribes. They are your tribal sound, which is very interesting, this whole concept. And of course it's a very ancestral sound as well, and so she's working with that. So that's a very lovely 2-week training that happens in July this year. And then there is the Harmonic Sounds Live, which is going to happen soon. Later than I hoped, but it will happen. And definitely will invite you for an interview there. We would like, I don't know, do you do interviews, Natalie?
I do, yeah, I'd be honored.
So cool. Okay. Super. So we will invite you for sure to do one, if you wish. And then we have the online academy, because this is what's happened to us. We have been thrown into the technological world, and although you're saying, oh my God, how can you do this online? I mean, how can you do this online? Well, you can. I've decided you can. And so we've done everything in English and then everything in Spanish. So it's been a year and a month already that I've personally been working full on this, and it's going to be finished any moment now. We've got two courses up there, which is Free Your Voice, which is based on the book. So I've got that in Spanish as well, because we have to be bilingual. and in English too. But Nestor's going to be posting his harmonics soon up there too, and so it will be the whole too. It'll be there, you know, the whole online. And then I've just released a new CD called The Way of the Heart with my gorgeous friend Micheles from Belgium, and that's basically a CD that you can look at in Spotify. It's there. It's all on major. It's on all major platforms. I'm supposed to say that. And it's it's songs and chants and mantras for people to work with themselves and also with their groups. So it's like you can use it in your workshops and things. And it's a beautiful CD. It took us a year to make, and we just published it. We just put it up there on the 9th of April. So just a few things happening, Natalie, just a few things, but I have promised my family no more for the moment.
I'm sure there will, though. I'm sure there will. Yeah, it's hard not to keep coming up. I mean, it's exciting stuff, but you're right. All those things take time, you know, the online and of course, any kind of recording project. So congratulations on all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Yeah, and you're right. You know, I think a lot of us wondered 1 year ago, you know, how will this work online? How will we connect to people? But you're right, it does work. It does work. You know, it's different. It's different
I'm
than
amazed.
in person, but
absolutely. I'm amazed. I mean, we work in Belgium as well with our training, and we have a different format in Belgium. We go over for 4 weekends, and we do like long weekends to get the whole training in. And, you know, we were very optimistic. And the first weekend I managed to get across to Belgium, and I met the group, and we were like, yes, and I'll see you next month. And of course that didn't happen because they locked down again, and I couldn't go. We couldn't travel to Belgium. And so our organizers in Belgium were like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? And so they said, well, why don't we try to do this online? And so we took the whole program online. And the group were amazing. We didn't lose anybody, and everyone was there. And I thought, the first time I thought, how can we do this? How am I going to do this? You know, like these, or like right now, I can see you in a little square, you know, and that's it. You've got all these squares looking at you. And how are you going to do this beautiful work that deserves so much more, you know? But hey, we did it, and everyone was super transformed, and I was really surprised. I have to be honest. After the work, I was so surprised that people were coming up with, "Wow, this work has really, you know, been such a transformational journey." And I'm thinking, my God, even online, it's a transformational journey, so it has to work.
no, there's no limitations to the energy transmission. You know, there's a little bit of a, I don't know, a learning curve with all the technology, but you're absolutely right that, yeah, there's no limitation there. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
But I don't like it. I have to be honest, though,
you know what, yeah.
Natalie.
Yeah.
I much prefer to have, you know, a room full of breathing people, and it's there. I much prefer that. I'm really praying. Yeah, well, we're all praying, aren't we? In our ways. Hey, we're all praying.
You know, and it will shift, but then at least you do have that. You're going to have all these online resources now for people that perhaps wouldn't want to travel, or they're very far away, or for whatever reason. Now you've done the work, and it'll be out there for people to access in that way. So, you know,
that's one thing that's true. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. It's just a joy to meet you and to hear more about you. And I can totally understand how it would be transformative to work with you. You're just truly vibrant and radiant, and I think could make anybody be able to express themselves. I just feel it. So thank you for all that you're doing for people. And I encourage people to access your book, access the online things that you're doing if they can't make it to Spain. But I appreciate you and all that you're doing.
Thank you, darling. Well, let's hope that we meet one day.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sound Heal Podcast, sponsored by the Om Shop and Spa. You can keep up to date with what's coming up next at soundshealstudio.com. Check things out on Facebook at Sounds Heal Studio, and you can listen to all previous podcasts as well as music meditations on the YouTube channel at Sounds Heal Studio. Be well and stay tuned.